The Ultimate Fighting Championship, from Bloodsport to $1 billion. The lights dim, the crowd roars. 20,000 people rise to their feet as two fighters step into an 8-sided cage. One will leave a legend, the other will leave with nothing but scars. Today, the Ultimate Fighting Championship is a global empire. Sold out arenas, superstars, billions of dollars. But the sport we see today was not always this polished. It was illegal in half the country, called barbaric.
There's that shot. It was a leaping uppercut, it looked like, with that lead hand.
There's people knocking them other down, sitting on top of them and smashing them in the face.
Condemned by politicians and built by fighters who risked everything for almost nothing. This is the story of the warriors who built the octagon. The Experiment in 1993. The first UFC event took place in Denver in 1993.
Where they're having different fights, different types of disciplines: karate, judo, jiu-jitsu, savate, kickboxing, sumo wrestling.
It's not a ring at all, it's an octagon. 8 sides, got a fence here.
No weight classes, barely any rules. One question drove the entire event. Which martial art is the best? Karate fighters, kickboxers, sumo wrestlers, street fighters, and then a quiet Brazilian wearing a white gi, Royce Gracie. Royce didn't look intimidating, but that was the point. The Gracie family wanted to prove technique could defeat strength. And one by one, he submitted everyone. The world had just witnessed the birth of modern MMA.
If you want to voice that foot, there's the technique. That's exactly what voice means. He's going exactly. Gerard is in a lot of trouble. I would be surprised if Mark Marshall after looks to be like he's going to. This is a major part of fighting. People do not understand. It's over. Very so wrong. It's over.
The first warriors. In the early days, the sport was brutal. Fighters competed multiple times in one night. Medical supervision was minimal, paychecks were tiny, yet warriors kept stepping forward. Ken Shamrock, a powerhouse with raw intensity, who became one of the first UFC superstars. Dan Severn, a wrestler with relentless discipline. Tank Abbott, a street brawler who represented the chaos of the early era. Mark Coleman, an Olympic wrestler who introduced a devastating strategy of ground and pound. But the sport faced a serious problem. The world wasn't ready for it. The war to survive. The UFC quickly attracted controversy. One of the sport's biggest critics was John McCain.
McCain came out and said,
What it was at the beginning was human cockfighting. It was.
you can't put on these unregulated fights with no athletic commission.
He just could beat on the UFC and get as much press as he wanted.
The last person on earth you want to butt heads with, it's the government.
And it wasn't like people were coming out and going, keep the UFC.
This is human cockfighting here.
It's sort of like human cockfighting in my view.
Ban Ultimate Fighting.
Back then, that was the biggest problem facing the US, was the UFC.
State commissions began banning events. Television networks refused to air fights. Sponsors vanished. By the late 1990s, the UFC was nearly dead. Then two businessmen made a gamble that would change combat sports forever. Lorenzo Fertitta and Frank Fertitta III. They purchased the struggling promotion and installed a bold young promoter as president, Dana White. Their mission was simple: turn chaos into a legitimate sport. The birth of modern MMA. Rules were introduced. Weight classes were created. Athletic commissions began regulating fights. Strikers learned wrestling. Wrestlers learned submissions. Martial arts began blending together. This was the birth of mixed martial arts, and new stars began rising. The first icons. The early 2000s produced the first generation of global UFC stars. Chuck Liddell, a knockout artist with a mohawk and terrifying power. Tito Ortiz, a charismatic trash talker who helped sell massive fights. Randy Couture, a disciplined tactician who proved intelligence could defeat youth. Their rivalries brought the sport into mainstream conversation. But the UFC still needed something bigger, something that would capture the attention of millions. The fight that saved the UFC. In 2005, the UFC launched a reality show called The Ultimate Fighter. At the finale, two unknown fighters stepped into the cage. Forrest Griffin versus Stephen Bonner. What happened next changed everything. For 3 rounds, they fought with unimaginable heart. Neither man quit. Neither man backed down. Millions of viewers suddenly understood what MMA truly was. Not brutality, but courage. That fight saved the UFC. The era of dominance. As the sport exploded into popularity, new legends emerged.
It's over! It's over, Joe! It's over, Joe! It's over, Joe!
George St. Pierre, a technician, perfected every aspect of fighting. Anderson Silva, a striking genius who made knockouts look effortless. John Jones, a prodigy who redefined creativity inside the cage. The sport was evolving faster than anyone expected. Global superstars. By the 2010s, the UFC had become a worldwide phenomenon. New fighters brought new audiences. Ronda Rousey, the woman who shattered barriers and brought women's MMA into the spotlight. Conor McGregor, the charismatic Irish striker who became the biggest pay-per-view draw in the sport's history. And then there's Khabib, the undefeated champion who dominated opponents with relentless grappling. The UFC was no longer a niche sport, it was global entertainment. The price of glory. But behind the bright lights is a darker truth. Every fighter who enters the octagon pays a price. Broken bones, concussions, years away from family. Most fighters never become champions. Many struggle financially even after successful careers, yet they continue to fight. Because the dream is bigger than the pain. The legacy. From a small tournament in 1993 to sold-out stadiums across the world, the Ultimate Fighting Championship has become one of the fastest-growing sports in history, and it was built on the backs of warriors who believed in something before the world understood it. Royce Gracie, Ken Shamrock, Chuck Liddell, George St. Pierre, Ronda Rousey, Conor McGregor, and countless others. Their sacrifices turned an experiment into a global empire, and the next chapter of the sport is already unfolding inside the octagon.